Okay, yep, I turned off my speaker. Okay, well, we have a quorum. Let's just wait 1 minute. I did not hear that the mayor was not coming.
Libby, do you have a quorum?
We have a quorum.
I'm just gonna say I can sit in as an alternate if you wanted.
Can't, because we're
We
all
have the
for
4 regional commission.
Right, that's right. That's right.
Guess I'll
Did
leave
the
it to
city
the city
shut
whether you
down
want
any
to
roads in town that-
get started.
overnight that people are getting stuck.
Go ahead and lay down minutes in the agenda and so we did.
Okay.
That was last year.
That was last year.
That was the last time I left here. I couldn't get on 131 South.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, what?
Is it,
I got stuck in the West Main nonsense.
Let's go ahead and call the September 11th, 2025 Policy Committee meeting to order. First item is to set the agenda. Are there any changes or corrections? And a motion,
I would make a motion to accept the agenda.
Support?
motion by Peter Hafner, support by Tom Wheat to accept the agenda as presented. Set the agenda as presented. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is introductions and guests. I think we have introduced everyone who's here previously, so I think I'm going to continue. We have another number of people joining online. Good. Next item is item number 4, acceptance of the August 14th, 2025 draft minutes. Any,
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
Second that motion.
there's a motion by John Crum and a second by Peter Hafner to accept the August 14th, 2025 draft minutes. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 5 is public comment. Anyone present today wishing to make any statement, any comment? Anyone online, please raise your hand. Hearing none, we will continue with item number 6, unfinished business. Continuing discussion on the 2026 water rate and then the construction costs and the system capacity fee this morning. We've had previous discussions in August and some in July, outlining the schedule. My understanding is we're going to consider this morning for action, a recommendation to the City Commission. The schedule of taking it to the City Commission is amended. It's going to be in November instead of October,
That's correct. It'll be November and into December.
but we'll still go ahead and consider it for action today, given that we walked through our processes. 2026 water rate is, do we want to lead with you or Stantec or?
I can start us out and then ask Stantec to join in on that. So just kind of walking through some of the previous previous presentations. We provided a presentation that kind of went into a rate study and a process we call revenue requirements. So it kind of looks at, what does the utility need overall from all customers? That work resulted in a recommendation for a 5% rate increase across all customers. That was then detailed further in a cost of service analysis. That cost of service analysis looks at the cost for the utility to provide that service to different customer classes, and it looks at what the revenue is collected from different customer classes. All that information uses empirical data, or that's actual data from the utility, including meter information, revenues collected by meter class, and then work done, capital done by, meter class or customer class in response to that. So all that was kind of put together, and then we saw that there was additional need to capture additional revenue from the residential rate class. We then kind of took another dive into that data and created kind of a more of a compromised approach, understanding that it's going to take a number of years to correct some of those deficiencies between the different customer classes. We don't need to recapture those revenues against residential all in 1 year. We can do those over a number of years while we're also getting additional data and kind of refinement. I think the message is, once there's a gap in revenue versus cost of service, we want to work to close that gap, but we don't need to close that gap overnight. That work has resulted in a recommendation that I've kind of written out in a memo as a recommendation to the UPC, which would be a 6.5% increase for residential customers, a 3% increase for multifamily customers, a 5% increase for commercial customers, a 2% increase for industrial customers, and no increase for seasonal customers. If we look at specific rate impacts to that residential customer class, that would result in a quarterly bill increase of about $7.13. And then if we express that as a monthly number, that's about $2.38 a month. And I'll pause there if there's any questions or anything, if we want to get into some more detail on any of those concepts.
So we've raised, so this is based on the cost of service study. We didn't do one last year.
We did one last year.
So this gap just showed up this year.
We saw it last year.
Okay.
We went one more. We saw it last year. It was starting to present itself last year. We continued with just the structural rate increase, kind of across the board to everybody. And then we, to see if that was going to correct itself over time, or if that gap was going to continue to widen.
So it continued to widen.
It did continue to widen.
And I believe that, I think last year that cost of service study was after the rate was actually approved.
Okay.
And the data refinement is an important component of that study. When I was in discussions with Stantec and James and others of the city group, there were like 500 meters difference from 1 year to the next. So it was like, the data is just continuously improving. So as that gets more refined, you have more reliability in what they're calculating, that there's a differential between what, the service is being received and the allocation of those revenues to that group benefiting. But I think that data is getting better with your meter side and BSA or what have you.
Sure, that's a good point. There is a lot of data refinement happening with our commercial office team, and that's really helped us with overall understanding of utility costs. There's, more smart meters going out into the system. There's also been a lot of work by this team to clean up meters and zones. So there's, we're reading meters every day and we're sending bills every day, even though a certain customer might only get a bill once every quarter. We have 22 zones in our system, and we're doing a lot of work to consolidate where those zones are within township areas. The Richland Meter Project's a good example. They're getting all new meters, and then we're also putting all of Richland Township and Richland Village into one read zone. So things can start to make sense, and we can start to pull in data in geographic locations and also, township areas as well.
Thank you.
And when we met last month, you looked at 3 different scenarios, and it looks like this was kind of the middle scenario, if I remember correctly. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. We kind of spent some time to look at what options we had in front of us in terms of kind of closing this gap. And if you recall, we had kind of option A, option B, option C. And under option A, that was kind of
Which page
a
is
full
that on?
recovery. It's
I think on some of them, there's a page number on the top right.
yeah, there's a page. It's page number 5 of that presentation.
Page 24 of the PDF.
Yeah, thanks, Tom.
That could be.
So if you kind of flip through, it's,
Yeah, it looks like that.
yeah, it looks like that. It's got the 3 colored bar charts, the orange, gray, and green, black. So the cost of service study identified that kind of that differential or that gap that needed to be closed. If that gap was closed in 1 year, we attempted to close that gap in 1 year, that would result in a recommendation for a 9.2% rate increase for residential, 0.6% increase for multifamily, 3.4% for commercial, a negative rate increase, which means we're actually going the other way and decreasing costs for industrial, and about a 10% decrease in costs for seasonal. That was, looked at from a staff perspective as maybe too quick of a correction. I think, when you're looking at overall rates and overall rates with respect to time, we really kind of favor a slower, more gentle correction as opposed to something that's, maybe a little back and forth. We don't want to create some sort of whiplash and come back next year with another cost of service analysis and say,
Exactly opposite.
oh, yeah, so like seasonal that went, almost 10% negative, and now we're bringing that like 5% positive. And the perspective is, well, maybe it should have just not been an adjustment. And so option B really kind of attempts to soften everything out while still recognizing that there is this gap between revenues collected and services provided for residential customers.
And I think it's important to emphasize that cost of service study is very much based on usage and a model that says, here's where you get to. Another organization that made that calculation wouldn't come up with the same number. So we're kind of trending towards where our consultants feel that those things lie. And I think there was a couple of year average even in that cost of service study saying, where are these costs over multiple years? So I just want to emphasize that, rather than doing this and this, and next year doing the opposite, that the smoothing, I think, makes logical sense.
I think it was averaged over 4 years.
That may be the case. I think it was multiple.
And there was a lot of
Yeah, very much so.
Stantec, are you referring to the seasonal customer class as far as the peaking factors?
Yes.
Yep. Yeah, so for this study, part of the additional analysis that we went through is having a larger data set and some more historical data over the years. We were able to really, take a deep dive into the 4-year average and to Peter's point, be able to smooth that out over those 4-year periods.
Also, at the last meeting we had, I was asked to look at the rate calculation. And so I was involved in the meeting before with Stantec and James and his team, with like a Zoom meeting, and we kind of walked through the model. Subsequently, at your request, I looked at the information that's in this packet. I didn't get to receive the model to look at how is it, making this or that calculation. But I wanted to highlight a couple items in that packet, if I may.
Yes.
So if you would look at, I believe it's page 9, and once, it should say Schedule 2. Actually, if you would go to page 8. And that should be the assumptions.
Does Stantec have this that they could put on the screen for other people to see, or?
It is in the packet.
Right.
Yes,
It's a
and
PDF.
there's a bunch of them here,
Yeah.
if people that are here would like to see them. And
Page 9, did you say?
it's page 8, if you would, first.
Page 8, the assumptions?
Yes.
Okay.
So on page 8 of the assumptions, I just wanted to highlight that about midway down, it says the average annual interest earnings of 3%, 2%, 2%, 2%, 2%. That is per the finance director of the cities. That was his thought. And I think that's a conservative estimate that we could, agree, think that it's reasonable. If he was saying 5, 5, 5, 5, that would be out of the reasonableness destination, I would suspect. So that's midway down the page. And if you take a look at page, I'm going to have you jump around a little bit here, if I may, on the pages. I'd like to look at the inflation factor on page 16 for wages, benefits, health, or chemicals, et cetera, et cetera. So page 16, it says cost escalation factors. It's right there. And I just wanted to point out that these are the factors that are being used. And originally it was with the 24 numbers, and I think now it's been updated for the 2025 budget. But these factors, I think, are conservative from the perspective that they may be higher than will occur. I hope they are, but they're not lower than we would expect, I would think. So I think that they're a reasonable estimate. I also looked through, every page of the document and just tried to gain a general understanding of it. And so I think those are, a conservative perspective. They're not too low. I think we can live within there. I hope James can with that inflation factor for those various components. Chemical is kind of a wild card because there's some process coming online, which I think it's a different chemical to maintain the system. And that won't come on for like 6 months, I think.
Correct, that's our transition to liquid blended phosphate across the entire system. So we're buying 2 different types of phosphate right now. One is a powdered form that we manually mix up ourselves, and the other one is a liquid blended phosphate. So the system is getting upgraded to go to all liquid blended phosphate, and that does present some increase in cost. We've got those in the line item.
Yep, so the line
budget,
items
so we
actually
should-
increase the cost, I think, like $500,000. And you can see the chemical component here is 7.5%, which chemicals are pretty volatile. If the
Correct.
economy's going, sometimes they're byproducts of this or that, and they're less expensive than when they're not making vinyl siding or whatever it might be, however they get some of these things. But I think we can live within those, and it's a big part of the projection. And hopefully James can live within those as well. And the last item I wanted to point out is on page 9. This is 2025 beginning balances as of 12/31/2024, and it's a calculation of available fund balance for purposes of reserves. So at the beginning of this, we have in cash, and then we have investments, and then we have receivables, and we have due from governments. And that due from governments, that represents some of the grant funding that we've already, or the system has already cash flow fronted or accrued expenses on the projects, and they're accruing back some of the grant revenue. And at the bottom, you can see here accounts payable, accrued interest, et cetera, et cetera. This is being used to represent the reserve. So at the bottom of that component, and correct me if I'm incorrect, Danica, at the bottom, you can see there's $34 million. That is kind of the model of the reserve. And I just wanted to point out that at the top, you see cash and investments. The reserve policy talks about cash and investments, and they're kind of using this to project outside of just cash and investments, which I can appreciate from the perspective of there's grant money. We've paid it out the door, and it's out the door from a cash perspective perhaps, and we need to add something back. So I would just suggest for this schedule too, that we would consider refining our policy over the next year, if you would like to do so. And identifying how a calculation would be made to make that estimate. I think we do need to consider what do we owe people and what do people owe us, especially with these projects that are grant funded, because they can throw a monkey wrench into what's in cash. But I wanted to just point out that this is the number that's being used in the model for projecting the reserves, and perhaps going forward, we look at what our reserve policy is and incorporate some components of this, and some components I wouldn't want to incorporate, but I think it's a reasonable projection. So I hope I haven't confused you. But I think it's important to understand, we set a policy, cash and investments, and this is doing something slightly different. I can appreciate it because I think some of it is good. And some of it, I think it's noise. I don't think it belongs in there. But I don't think it would meaningfully change the calculation of the rate. And this was also done last year and discussed last year, but I didn't bring it, we didn't have a policy at that time. I'm not even sure we did as far as a utility financial policy.
Thank you. It makes sense to me to bring that back.
Or at least to just discuss it and say, hey, why is this there? I don't think it actually should be. I think it's actually already accounted for somewhere else, would be my perspective on it. But I looked through the model, or at least I looked at the model while they were changing things, and James went through things, and Mr. Vincenzi was there, and he was involved, a bunch of the team from the city. And they refined it, and what if, and how, and where, and all these things occurred, and I think this is data in, data out. This is what we've received.
If I understand, you said you did not look at the model itself. Is that something you still want to do?
I'd like to see it, but I'm not sure I ever will. I mean, I could see it on the screen. But, just to kind of, this is the data that goes in, and this is what came out. How it goes about doing that,
That's not what you'd say.
I don't see that. But I do support the rate concept.
Yeah.
So I thought that we'd have to go back and look, that information should be available to you, to the UPC. So,
Do you get the model?
I don't have, no. It's my understanding that that's intellectual work product of Stantec. We receive the output, which is the rate recommendations and the cost of service study. And we're part of the process. We're part of the data refinement, and but we don't hold the model. Right. We don't have a copy of it.
And I'll just point out too, these schedules that you see here, Schedule 1 through, I'm not sure, through like 16 or 17, are essentially the outputs of the model. I know it's not an Excel format like James mentioned with the intellectual property, but these schedules essentially provide all of the inputs and outputs of the model here that you see on the screen.
So we had that decision like in 2013 or 14.
Sure.
That said it was a public information. That's my recollection. I'm not understanding this exactly.
Was that part of litigation between the city and others? And
Yeah,
so-
because it's, it's how the city develops that rate. That's why it's public. So that's, that took a while to get to that point, but
Right.
that was the conclusion, so.
And I even think that in the contract, it calls for that.
So it does talk about it being available to the UPC, as part of the contract. The UPC would just need to make a request, something we'd work with Stantec on. I mean, that's the whole purpose of hiring a rate consultant, regardless of whomever they are, is that they're financial experts, and we give them the best information and data that comes out of the system to the rate consultant, who then, just like an auditor or anybody else like that who's a professional, then works with the staff and the board to then come up with recommendations. So if there's a purpose behind it, there's a need for it, then, that's a request that we can make as a board. I would be curious as to what's the purpose.
I think we've relied on Peter a lot in this group to analyze the data, and so it's for his complete analysis. That's the purpose, really.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting that it be made public, and I'm not suggesting that I look at it, because it's gonna make my eyes blurry, but it might be good for Peter to have a look at it, just to have a better understanding of the inputs and outputs and what's happening to them.
Well, it seems like for this rate year, the model's been run for this
Sure,
rate year.
I understand that.
And we've been at the table with the finance people to do that. And Peter, I really value your opinion on the work that's been done at that time. So I think, are we talking about next rate year then, or?
I would think so.
General discussion.
Yeah, it's too late to.
Right, no, I don't think it's, but I wanted to point out, that's what I've seen, is in and out.
Okay, so for next year, then, we would expect that you would have the opportunity to look at the in and out as well as.
Sure.
How those are.
like an Excel format
Yeah.
to see the
We just
relationships.
sit down with
Yeah.
them or what have you, but just to understand. And, you learn things that way too.
Yeah.
Okay.
With that discussion, I would like to make a motion to recommend to the city to follow the rate schedule provided by Mr. Baker in his memo proposing the rate changes for the various ratepayers in that memo. I'm not going to quote it.
September 11th, 2025 memo.
September 11th, 2025 memo, which includes just rates, correct? Do we
Yeah.
want to propose each of these separately, or should we propose, there's also a proposed change in the system capacity buy-in fee?
This is just rates.
Yeah, so there's three memos, three separate recommendations.
So I would propose following the rate change memo provided by Mr. Baker to the city commission.
Second.
There's a motion by Peter Hafner and a second by Jeff Chamberlain to recommend the rate proposal as outlined in the September 11, 2025 memo before us and included in the packet for the 5% structural rate increase and then the individually noted class increases or no changes. Any further discussion? We need to determine who's going to attend those meetings. Do you know which meetings those are?
We're right now looking at, I believe, November 18th for a committee of the whole, and then December 1st, and then December 15th. That's not officially on the schedule yet. We're still kind of working through city manager's office on, overall scheduling.
How does it make sense, I mean, we want to attend, but does it make sense for us to attend the first one, everyone? A feel for that? Maybe Jeff even has some idea. Is it best for us to be at every one of them, or just when it's initially read, because you do it like twice, right?
Usually there's a presentation, right?
Correct. That would be the committee of the whole would be an in-depth presentation on kind of all the needs of the utility, the programs, the projects, a lot of focus on the capital programs. We're also going to provide a lot of information and updates on our water affordability program, how folks can qualify, where the program's been utilized, that sort of thing. So that's usually about a 45-minute presentation. And yes, the rate recommendations will be part of that, but there wouldn't be any formal vote on that. The formal votes would likely occur December 1st, for the first reading, and then, the official vote would be December 15th.
So do you suggest we should have a representative at the first meeting or the second? Because that's the point when they're going to, or everyone, or do you have a feel for it?
Yeah.
Last year, I attended the presentation and was able to get up and support the rates.
Yeah, that was very helpful.
And I don't know that we went to another one after that. So, I mean, again, the contract calls for us, the UPC, representative of the UPC, to go and,
Share our thoughts.
with the city commission. I don't think wherever you think from the city side that would best be communicated from UPC to the city commission. And I've gone to the past couple of years. I'm happy to go again. I'm free any of those dates. So I guess I would suggest that let James and the administration guide us as to where that would be most impactful for the city commission.
Do we need, we have a willing volunteer who is knowledgeable on the subject. Do we need to
Take action?
take any action?
I don't think we do. I think we just need to
Okay. So
agree that Tom will
17th.
represent this recommendation we're about to vote on.
I agree.
I concur, and I think, again, in the past, the presentation night is usually a good night to have a representation from the UPC there, because it gives the full story about what was involved in the process and who was involved, and then how we came to a conclusion.
We don't need to be there 3 nights saying,
But should you find you need to, or would suggest that we have a representative there more than the initial, let Tom know.
Yeah, I think
Because
we'll
things
say
can change.
open communication.
Yep.
what date is the meeting?
John, correct me, it'd be, Monday is the 17th of November.
That's the presentation.
That would be the presentation.
Okay, so there is a motion on the floor for the recommendation on the 2026 water rate. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0 and 2 absent. Okay.
5.
Next is system capacity fee or the costs? The system capacity fee, and there's a memo in the packet from the city of Kalamazoo that includes the recommendation from Stantec to not change the system capacity fee for 2026 and to leave it at the 1175 fee. Any discussion on that?
I would make a motion that we bring to the city the maintenance of the system capacity buy-in fee at the rates suggested in the memo dated September 11th, 2025 by Mr. Baker.
Support.
There's a motion by Peter Hafner and a second by Tom Wheat to leave the system capacity fee at the 1175 as recommended.
To recommend to the city leaving or
Yes.
following this schedule, yes.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, just a quick question, and that it stays the same, and Peter, you probably, or Danica can explain. So you expect that to move up over time, right? But it has to do with depreciation and investment.
Sure.
So,
There's a calculation behind this, and it does get involved with the asset values of the system and allocating that asset value to new connections. So they're basically buying into the system that has been purchased by the other members. And so if we, raised our rates through very high and we cash funded everything, this number would definitely go up. But if you're kind of just maintaining the same level of net book value, for the most part, there's more calculation in there than that, then it theoretically wouldn't change. And again, we don't want to follow the 1 year, this happens and then this happens or this happens. So the consultants have looked at it and it doesn't need to change, and that's likely a good thing for the customer or new customers. But I don't think there's been a substantial change in what the system value is and the calculation.
so the system value, that includes, because there's been a lot of money spent.
A lot of it's finance, so it's really
That's the
not.
question. So you got the money spent and the financing and the depreciation are the big
Yes.
drivers, right? But a lot of the money spent has been borrowed, so it's not really money.
Right, and then as you pay it off, it's depreciating, so I think this will go up theoretically because the rates have gone up, and that allows for more cash funding. And the fact that we have to meet some debt covenants or bond covenants, that requires the rates to go up, and that allows more cash financing. It's just kind of the nature of those bond coverage requirements.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0 and 2 absent. And then the next item on this 6A is the 2026 drinking water service installation charges recommendation.
Mr. Baker provided me with documentation similar to the pages following the memo, suggesting an increase in the installation charges. And we had like a kind of an online discussion just of the reasonableness of it, and it's based on actual costs of installation, and it just to me, it was kind of common sense that costs are X. And if you're gonna charge an average of those costs, then they're not what they were last year. And so I thought it was reasonable and it made sense, and I appreciate you connecting me in the loop there, Mr. Baker. And I would make a recommendation that we recommend to the city to follow the installation charge recommendation in the memo dated September 11th, 2025, provided by Mr. Baker.
Support?
So I'm going to go ahead and make this statement of what those numbers are. It's not that long. So we have, we're recommending increasing the 2026 drinking water installation service charges to $3,900 for a partial service and $7,200 for a full service. That's the street service and the yard service for all service lines, 1¼ inch and smaller. Any further discussion? Any discussion?
Just one thing, just point out, it's in the memo, but just here for the discussion that there is a 36-month payment period that, so as some, this, it does represent a construction cost, and it's not small, but it does represent reality. But I think it's a good benefit that the system provides to whomever that is, whether it's a developer or a homeowner making a new connection, that they can be spread over 36 months. So
That is helpful. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0 and 2 absent. Next item is item 6B, the capital improvement plan. And we looked at that last month as well, the proposed 2026 capital improvement plan. And so we did not have any action at that time. We had some discussion, and then today we're looking to consider it for a recommendation.
And I believe that in the documentation we've seen here, the rates are based on that proposed.
Correct. Yeah. I will note that the capital improvement plan and the rates that are part of that are, really looking at kind of the big picture of it all. And so the capital plan does detail individual projects line by line by line, but the rate isn't tied exactly to every single project. So it is understood and anticipated that there's going to be a certain execution rate or how many projects we can complete in any given year. It's also kind of understood in practice that a project might get pulled forward a few years or pushed back a few years to align itself with, say, townships that might be doing work on roads, or the city that might be doing work on roads, or MDOT, or some other project coordination item. So, yes, it's our intention to do all those projects as listed, in the years as listed, but there may be opportunities from a construction coordination perspective, or somebody's ready to go and somebody else isn't, or vice versa, that those projects in years might be moved around. And if that does happen, we don't intend to come back to represent the capital plan to say, well, we're going to do this in year 26, not year 27, or that's going to 2028. It's just kind of understood that the capital plan, in a macro perspective or global perspective, is part of rates, and there's a certain execution strategy to that in the rates.
The plan that we're discussing, James, that would be Schedule 6 or page 17 of the rate calculation. Does that make sense?
Yes, yeah, and there's some numbers on there, I believe 75% execution rate.
Yes.
Yep.
That's in the front of the report, so, but on page 17, it identifies each of the projects.
And previously, I've gone through this, I haven't studied it the number, but all the listed improvement projects seem reasonable for the system. Both from production and pumping to replacement and repair to extensions of new systems. So it's a very comprehensive investment in the overall system.
We want to have a motion to approve the capital I would make,
I'll make that motion.
Yeah.
To approve the capital improvement plan.
I'm not sure we approve it, we just recommend it to the, I think,
Yeah.
I'm not sure what we do.
It's like the rates, recommending it to the city commission for adoption.
I make a motion to recommend the capital improvement plan to the city commission. Recommend that it's acceptable.
I'll support.
There's a motion by Tom Wheat, second by John Crum, to recommend the capital improvement plan for 2026 and beyond as presented. Any further discussion?
In an effort to educate this group or the members of this group that aren't engineers, I would suggest that if James or your staff could provide us with a kind of a brief description of what's going to happen when we have like a $50 million project, that we would learn a lot, or I would, if you said we're going to drill 3 wells and we're going to change the piping. It doesn't need to be an hour presentation, but I think that if you did that on like the giant things, that would be helpful to me to understand more, the importance of doing these things.
Sure, Peter, would you want me to
I don't want you to do
now?
it today, but
Okay.
maybe if you could at another meeting.
Sure.
When we, because I saw it on the news, the
Yeah.
news station improvements. I saw the old building and I'm thinking $50 million, there must be more to this.
Yeah, there is that old building was built 1914 and it just,
I get it, but.
there's a pump that lives in there, that's it.
Yes.
So the new building's gonna have manganese,
Yep.
iron,
Yep.
PFAS treatment, kind of all together.
Yep.
And it's not just gonna do the one, it's doing 2. So there's consolidation that's happening. And then there's much more treatment than what's going on right now.
Right.
Is that the 14.5?
Correct, that's, Station 5 and Station 14.
But just if you brought us some information or if there's like a little summary or something, that would be, not today, just it'd be helpful for us then when we see the next project. Oh yeah, that makes sense. It's kind of leading into, and as we gain years of service, we'll better understand the whole process.
Any other discussion, comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0 and 2 absent. Next item is the UPC per diem, and this body took action in May on this item, and in follow-up and in conversation with the city attorney, there was a request made to follow the letter of the bylaws, which is to designate both a non-professional and a professional per diem, and to specifically name who those professionals or non-professionals are. And we did that previously when we first formed the bylaws. We voted on those members. So I don't think we have to redo that, but we need to vote on who are the professionals and non-professionals who would receive the per diem, who are those members who are not otherwise compensated.
And that's included in your memo.
Yes, this is the same memo from May with the blue typeface added following the discussion. So we've actually taken partial action, and this is to sort of complete that. And once we do that, then the city's comfortable with moving forward with implementing this. So,
Would you be able to identify those individuals and then we could
Their
vote
status?
on it? Or
Yes.
maybe you propose it, because you're more familiar with all.
sure, yes. The per diem recommendation, I'll start with that. That's the first thing we need to vote on. And we did vote on the 150 per meeting per diem for professionals, and so this would be acting to establish a non-professional per diem. The individuals that I'm aware of that are not otherwise compensated, that are professionals, would be Will Rowland and alternate member Mark Elliott. Both Mark Elliott, civil engineer, and Will Rowland, retired City of Kalamazoo professional.
And there are no non-professionals, correct?
No, not that I'm aware. Actually, we need to vote, I think, on you. We didn't officially vote. I think we didn't name you as you're submitting invoices, yes. You've got your own business, yes, correct. Okay.
So is that a motion to
Yes.
identify those two individuals as professionals?
Yes,
And I would,
and to specify the two rates,
of 100 and 150 per meeting.
yes.
I would second that motion.
I'll make it. Second. I don't think we can't make a motion.
Okay. Is that clear to everyone? Is there any other discussion? There's a motion and a second on the floor to complete the circle on the per diem for otherwise non-compensated community members.
I think it makes a lot of sense.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0 and 2 absent. Item D is the Comstock Galesburg City Kalamazoo North 35th Street franchise area.
And there's a document down here on this. I can send some around. That makes sense.
I can talk through this a little bit. If you
Sure,
like an
yes,
update. So this is an item that we've been kind of working on back and forth since June. There is a map here that shows a green area that would be proposed, City of Galesburg, providing service to Comstock Township. And then there's kind of the new area along East Michigan Avenue or M96 that City of Kalamazoo would provide to Comstock customers in that area. So we've kind of taken UPC recommendations on that. We've now drafted a memo to Superintendent Scott Hess with Comstock Township. And then also at the end of the table, there's some big maps. I think Mr. Hafner referred to those as wallpaper maps of the new Appendix A. So Appendix A has been updated in accordance with the Water Services Agreement, and that now new Appendix A is actually a GIS layer, Tom. So that's something that we'll get to your offices as well. So now it shows kind of every parcel and whether they're an existing service area or proposed new service area. So that, in our opinion, resolves this and gives kind of Comstock Township some, understanding with how they can proceed. That City of Galesburg and Comstock Township and how they interact, that would be between those two parties. But we believe that this update to Appendix A and that memo that kind of describes that is in keeping with the intent of the Water Services Agreement and the recommendations of the UPC.
So, as I understand it, what you're saying is that those are the areas you will be serving, and the areas that Galesburg will be serving, and then Galesburg and Comstock need to make that, adjust their franchise agreement.
Correct, yeah, for those areas, yeah.
So they make the change to the franchise agreement, and you, the city or the system, will recognize that.
Correct.
Okay. Is that, and you're telling Scott he needs to go do that, right?
Correct, yes.
Okay. There's one little change on this. Hopefully that's not a big change. Along East Michigan Avenue, that second parcel off of 35th Street, Alien Car Care, has a long service lead that's being served by Galesburg.
Okay.
We learned of that.
Yeah.
That's the end of the process. So that just needs to stay in the Galesburg
Yeah.
area.
Yeah, and I think it's shown as Galesburg.
No.
Tom,
Oh.
there was a revision.
Oh, yeah.
It's the one right on 35th, it's the second one in?
Second one.
Oh, okay.
We can make that update to,
Yeah.
it's all
That update.
GIS and by parcel now, so that's a really easy update for us to make.
Yeah, Josh from Galesburg called me and let me know that they are serving that parcel right now.
So if I'm understanding, there's no action, this body needs to take on this item.
That's correct. It was more just a follow through and update to, let the UPC know that we believe that we've resolved this item, and Galesburg and Comstock are free to engage the work that they need to do to serve, those customers in that green hatched area.
Yeah, it just recognizes where the existing infrastructure is, where the existing services are being provided already, sort of outside the original franchise, and recognizes capital improvement plan. The system's gonna be running water main down East Michigan Avenue to loop back into Miller Drive in 2027, I believe.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for the city's work on that effort. Any other comments or questions on that? Next item is the professional services invoices.
And there are two, one from Maine Meridian, and I would make a motion to approve the Maine Meridian LLC invoice 00110 for services provided.
And I'll support.
There's a motion by Peter Hafner and a second by John Crum to approve the invoice from Maine Meridian as presented. We do have, even with one abstention, we still have a quorum, so. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
Motion carries 4 ayes, 1 abstention, and 2 absent. It's an invoice by the Hafner Group.
I'll make a motion to pay Hafner Group invoice 1067 in the amount of $1,058.30.
I'll support.
There's a motion by Tom Wheat and a second by John Crum to pay the invoice from the Hafner Group as described. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain, Hefner.
Motion carries 4 ayes, 1 abstention, and 2 absent. We're on to item number 8, committee member, alternate, attendee, guest comments. Anyone wishing to make a comment this morning?
Yeah, David Markwood again, Deputy City Manager, City of Kalamazoo. Just want to express my appreciation for your participation in the upcoming City Commission meeting. That will be particularly valuable this year as we will have at least 2 new elected officials. And so some background and support for the recommendations will be very much appreciated and valuable. So thank you.
Thank you. Jerry, any? Jeff? Jerry? Any comment online?
I have nothing else this morning, thank you.
Peter?
I just would like to thank James and his team for working through the rate process and including me in that. Very informative. A lot of information gets transferred, so quite a lot of work. Thank you.
Fantastic, thanks.
Survey, want to announce it's our 70th anniversary of the Clean Water Plant, or the Kalamazoo Water Reclamation Plant, City of Kalamazoo. The plant was built in 1955, went into operation in July, and we're now celebrating 70 years of operational success in providing clean water back to the environment there. So we're going to have an open house on Thursday, September 25th from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. With remarks and ceremony at 1 p.m. And we'd like to invite all UPC members, all non-members, or alternate members, excuse me, all member communities. And then we also recognize that we serve 11 municipalities in water, and many of you, we also serve in wastewater. This is a wastewater conversation, a wastewater celebration, and Libby Chair, if you could send this out to Regional Commission, which has a little bit bigger wingspan than this group does right here in front of us. So this has really been a tremendous community partnership. We couldn't do the work we do at the water reclamation plant without the support of all these other communities. There's 22 communities that together support the Kalamazoo Water Reclamation Plant. We really would like to thank each and every one of those communities. So thank you, and we hope to see everybody on Thursday, September 25th.
Thank you.
No comment on this, but curious what was happening before 1955?
It went straight to the river.
Straight to the, no settlement? And
Nothing.
And Mayor Anderson's not here, but he is always good to say, one of the hallmarks of society is that we have functioning wastewater plants. And he's right, because we used to do exactly that.
And I'd like to add one thing. I'm 70 this year, so the 70th anniversary is rather interesting. But I worked with the River Partners Program and the Kalamazoo River Watershed Management Plan, and I probably have it in my piles of paper someplace, but a huge article in the Kalamazoo Gazette and an opinion wherein there was a legitimate community argument that the Kalamazoo River should be classified as an industrial river. There's no such thing of that in the Clean Water Act, but said, hey, with all these industries here, it's such a horrible river, we'll just go to live with it and save the money of not build a waste treatment plant. It's just, It's really interesting. I'll have to try and find it.
People
and
still
share it with
exist
people.
today.
Yeah, I know.
Luckily, we're building kayak launches on the river now.
I'll just say that.
I shipped my kayak there. I want to thank the city staff for working with this body to bring the information on the rates, which is quite extensive, and it's a lot to digest, and we're not the professionals in terms of, I'm not a CPA. I appreciate working with this group to bring the information over multiple meetings so that there's time to understand and digest and ask questions. So thank you for that. And last weekend, I was at my high school reunion in Fort Wayne, and on Sunday, they have this quarterly Be a Tourist in Your Own Hometown thing. And there are like 20 venues that are open. You can go for free. The restored courthouse. They had the filtration plant open. And we tried to go, but it was booked. You had to sign up for that one, so missed it, but
It was so popular, it was full.
it was full.
Well, maybe we can have a tour when 514's done.
Certainly.
So the next meeting date is October 9th here. I know Peter is gone. He could be virtual, but we can't vote. That can't be considered a part of the quorum. And I am also gone. So we can work to see what the agenda is, and it is still a go. I know we've taken action on the rates today, so we'll see if there are other items that need action or discussion. So, if you recall, we set the calendar for meetings to be monthly. By contract, they're to be quarterly, but we've had enough work that we weren't comfortable just going to a quarterly meeting. So, and then when we set them monthly, we determined that we would cancel if there weren't enough items. So when we have canceled, at least one, maybe two this year. Yeah. So. Great. Any other? We have exhausted the agenda, so we are adjourned. Thank you.
Hey, James, what time is that all day long?
It's 11 to 2. Yeah, and I think there's enough